Hey guys, how's it going? A bit of different content for you guys today. This is completely unscripted and just kind of gives me an opportunity to speak to you guys one-on-one effectively. First thing to say is that, of course, I changed my upload schedule from weekly to bi-weekly. This has given me an opportunity to work on something I'm rather excited to announce. So I'm looking forward to telling you more about that later. But basically, to give you an idea, I really enjoy creating the YouTube content, but I realized that it's very slow to grow something like that. And I kind of wanted to venture out into different other aspects. So that's kind of where I'm leaning into, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. Effectively, it's going to be a clothes brand, but it's not just any clothes brand. It's very personal to my heart. It's something that I've created. The logo itself, which I can pop up on screen now, is composed of three things, and it's actually the logo for my YouTube channel. So I'm almost creating what I would call an ecosystem of Davanci products. So we have the palm tree. So the palm tree for me is about warmer weather, a different way of life. For me personally, coming from the UK, getting away from the colder weather, they're also my favorite trees. Then you have the roots which come off of the tree. Those roots mean staying grounded, staying genuine, and kind of, I think there's a lot of people out there that are very false, especially online. What I want to try and do is be the most authentic version of myself. It's really difficult to do when you're doing things online because everyone has their own persona. And I find it very difficult to talk to the camera. And that's why I do stuff like this. So I can kind of come out of my comfort zone and try new things. And finally, we have the maze around the outside. And the maze for me symbolizes finding your way, discovery, adventure, and all that great stuff that I've been doing on this YouTube channel. That being said, that's going to be the first kind of number one origin. So Davanci Origins clothes line. And then from there, I kind of want to lean into different countries. I really want to get you guys involved with this. Like, this is something where I can see in the future we would have, for example, a Spain clothes line, a UK one, a Colombia one, a Venezuela one, and so on, so on, so on. And people have already mentioned to me like, oh, do you know what? I'd really like this kind of design on my clothes. Is that possible? Anything is possible. And that's what I'm really excited about. It's not just my solo venture. This is something that I also want to collaborate with people on. Let's see where it ends up. I have no idea at this point. It's just an idea. I'm currently working on the website and the SEO stuff. So search engine optimization, which is a whole learning process for me. Of course, I've been doing it with the YouTube channel, but it's something slightly different when it comes to a website. So bear with me with that. It's taking time, I know, but you guys are seeing the normal YouTube content, and there's going to be other things on the way. I also kind of want to branch out into the future into other different things, but that's way into the future. So we'll deal with that as we go. Okay, so what is this that I'm doing now? I wanted to try something slightly different. I've kind of pulled together a bunch of news articles that I think are relevant to travel, but also to Spain and, the kind of content that I do on YouTube. Again, this has absolutely no script, so I might get better with time, but right now it's going to be a little bit awkward because I'm just talking to you and there's going to be a lot of things I'm going to need to remove and that sort of stuff. But what I've done is I've taken recent stories that I've found online and we can just sit and have a conversation about it. And then I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Will you actually comment or not? I don't know. But that's why I'm trying these things out. So our first article we have here is from El País, Racism in the Trump Era. And as you can see, the title has some swearing in it. I try to avoid swearing in my videos, so we're going to do that here. But you can see racism in the Trump era. Don't speak that Spanish in my country. Now, of course, we've seen what's been happening recently in America, and it's very interesting to see how it has such a large impact on the rest of the world. These sanctions, for example, that Trump is putting into place, and the deportation of many people who are contributing towards the society. It's very interesting from my perspective. I look at something like this and think this is ridiculous because America is built on immigrants, right? Like, that's the whole point. That's the reason why they exist today and to the capacity that they are. But I am not a politician, and I'm sure there's more nuances to it than that. So I'm not going to go into that necessarily. Just want to kind of check out this article and see what it's got to say. So the US president has created a new internal enemy, the Latino migrant, which is interesting because, like I say, I live here in Spain, and here in Spain we have a lot of Latinos. And as far as I'm concerned, they're incredible people. Now, obviously, with every race, there are people who ruin it for the rest of us. But for the most part, I would say Latinos are incredible human beings. Anyway, let's continue reading. Who must be identified, pointed out, and deported. So it'd be interesting to know what he's referring to here. Are we looking at illegals, or are we talking about Latinos in general? This is a very broad statement to make. Donald Trump wants to transform the United States into a resort for white people. Okay, well, we can already see that the newspaper here, El País, is leaning into what sounds like distaste for Donald Trump, which is fair enough. I know politically people look on both sides. I'm, just to put it out there, neutral with it because I don't really care. But in the past, I've always said that Donald Trump is a very funny figure for me. I find that some of the things he says is very controversial. From an outsider's perspective, I find it funny, but I can understand how he can be so impactful for some of the things he said and done. And of course, he's one of the most powerful men in the world. Being the president of the US comes with a lot of responsibilities. Trump and his government are moving forward resolutely in the creation of a new internal enemy for Americans, the Latino migrant, who must be identified, pointed out, and deported. Okay? I feel like we're not getting the full story here, but let's continue. The goal is to carry the largest deportation in history, and anything goes in order to achieve it. Schools, hospitals, and churches are no longer protected from anti-immigrant raids. Okay, but this to me sounds like they're doing raids on illegal immigration. That's what it sounds like. This is not like they're not just kicking out Latinos, right? Anyway, refers to undocumented people as trash or waste. Okay, this is a bit unfair, and obviously it depends on your view on this. I think, for example, in Europe, we have our own problems with undocumented people. I think it's unfair to call them trash or waste, but of course, I do believe people need their documentation. This is important. State senator from Mississippi and Missouri have proposed rewarding citizens who report foreigners so they can be deported with payments of $1,000. Quite an extreme way to go about it, but okay. Speaking Spanish or having dark skin has become a problem. It's not a very nice way to word it, really, is it? Not to mention, can we just point this out, that speaking Spanish, well, firstly, can come from many different countries. What about the Spanish, for example? And then you mention having dark skin. Do they realize that Latinos can also be white? Because I've met plenty of Latinos who are equally as white as I am, I mean, okay, not by race, but by color. Anyway, several US citizens have been arrested just because of their appearance. Okay, no, but now we're leaning into it, right? Like, this is what we're saying here. Several US citizens, they're US citizens, it just so happens they're Latino, with which 300,000 Venezuelans entered the United States legally in recent years and has turned them into undocumented people. Okay, so there are people that have come over and are claiming asylum. They are now saying no after the fact, which is wrong, right? Like, you can't go back on something you've already stated. It's the same situation with me here in Spain. Can you imagine if the government said, well, Brexit's now happened. We've already said to you that everything's fine. You've got your documentation. You're a permanent resident. And then one day they just said, no, we'll get rid of it. I know that there's going to be people in the comments that will say, no, David, at the end of the day, it's down to the decision of the government. Yes, okay, to an extent. But, the contribution of the people from outside of the country are a big part of what makes a society work. Now, I'm not saying if you don't integrate, of course you need to integrate. It's the same with me here in Spain. I would never expect anyone to, for example, speak to me in English. I would always put the effort in. I find it very difficult, but I am trying to integrate, right? And I'm very respectful of the religion, the people, the food, the cultures, everything. And I think that's been documented very well on my YouTube channel. But it's important, right? Like, if you move to a country, you need to integrate. Okay, I seem to have lost my place now, but let's continue. Official data estimates that there are 11 million undocumented people in the US. Okay, but this article's weird because it keeps hopping between documented, undocumented. Like, who are they targeting here? And I don't know if this is just the writing of El País or they literally have no idea. It's just like they're targeting all Latinos. I don't know. These are people who work, consume, and in 2022 paid more than 95 billion in federal, state, and local taxes. Okay, but then if they're paying taxes and they're contributing towards society, now we're talking about immigrants that are legals. This article's weird. At the end of the day, they're contributing towards society, and that's what people want. The idea is that it doesn't make a difference whether you're contributing towards society or not. They don't want people in the country, which logically makes absolutely no sense. And especially targeting, Hispanics. It's disgusting and wrong. With which some 300,000 Venezuelans remain legally in the US and have work permits by 18 months. Her benefits expire in April because the Republican administration considers Venezuela to be a safe country today, which is ludicrous. Come on. We know what's going on in Venezuela right now. It's a terrible situation. So despite the fact that Trump himself has called it a dictatorship. Yeah, I was going to say it's very contradictory. And also, I think I'm obviously saying this just from my perspective, but I know for a fact there's a lot of Venezuelan friends of mine who, if they were reading this, they would be saying, this is absolutely disgusting, it's awful. But also, even alluding to the fact that it's a safe country is just crazy, right? Like, it's not. There's some serious problems. Terrible. Okay, I've realized that these articles are a lot longer, and rather than me just sit here and read them to you, basically I just want to make the point that it's crazy that this is the situation that we're in. And yeah, I feel really sorry for any Latinos that are having to deal with this issue at the moment. Hopefully there will be other governments getting involved here and saying, okay, we'll take them. Because I know that there's lots of Latinos here contributing towards society and are very happy, right? So come to Spain. Moving on, we have the Olive Press. So here it says, shocked mayor in Spain asks Meghan Markle to change her As Ever brand's logo because it plagiarizes her town's coat of arms. The reason why I picked up on this one is very interesting. And the reason why is we've mentioned it before about my new business, okay? And we were talking about the palm tree and the roots and the maze around the outside. Now, this isn't exactly the same, and I haven't scrolled down yet, but have a look at the logo. It's really interesting. Look at that. You can see that they're basically the same. But yeah, you've got the palm tree look, and this is similar to my logo. But yeah, you can clearly see the resemblance between the two. But actually, we're not going to go into too much detail about this one. But basically, yeah, as you can see, Meghan Markle has basically borrowed, stolen the logo of this coat of arms from this town in Mallorca. So yeah. And it's similar to mine. Not exactly similar though. I don't want any legal problems. And our next story is here on Notes in Spanish. So these guys have a YouTube channel, and it's The Secret to Spanish Fluency. And more so from my side, wasn't necessarily this article, is kind of just talking about my experiences to what I've had to deal with up to this point. So living in Spain, and you know, when I first arrived here, I didn't know any Spanish, and I've kind of had to teach myself as I've gone along. And as a result of that, I've kind of exposed myself to different people with different accents. So if you're speaking to someone from Valencia, for example, compared to someone from Madrid, or even someone from Latin America, and even within then, you have so many different accents. Someone from Venezuela, Colombia, Mexico, Peru, you name it. These different people have such different ways of speaking. You really have to learn them one by one, I suppose. So this idea of like the secret to speaking Spanish like with fluency is very difficult, because fluency to one person can mean something different than to someone else, right? So for me, I wouldn't say that I'm fluent, but then if you speak to someone from the UK who doesn't know any Spanish, they would go, oh wow, David, your Spanish is so good. It really depends on where you view your level. And I think the problem is, the more you learn, the more you kind of realize that you don't know as much as you think. And so there would have been points in my learning that I would say, oh, do you know what, my Spanish is pretty good. But I would say like my confidence in Spanish is more important to me than the fact that I can speak it. So it's being able to speak fluently, and that's the part that I find very difficult. Being able to speak without having to pause all the time, and filler words as well. I do in English. I have filler words. Imagine that, but in a non-native language, in something like Spanish. This happens a lot of the time. So if you're interested in hearing my perspective on this, I could do a whole video on it. But yeah, learning Spanish, it's a journey. It's not something you can learn very quickly. I've heard people that are like, yeah, I can speak Spanish really well after a few months. I'm like, yeah, not for me. I don't have the gift for it, but I can speak enough. Yeah, even people have said to me, David, why don't you do Spanish content on your YouTube channel? Like, you could just speak in Spanish. And I'm like, you have no idea at my level, right? It would be really difficult for me. And here we have, as you can see, this article mentions post-Brexit status of Gibraltar, very close to an agreement, which is good to hear. So as you can see here, I don't want to go through the whole article. I've realized that that's going to take way more time than I want to, kind of just glossing over these stories, and you know, we can just have a dialogue about them. But in this case, what we're basically saying here is negotiations involving London, Madrid, Brussels, and Gibraltar have been ongoing, aiming to maintain seamless border movement. This is important, right? Like, there are a lot of people who live in Gibraltar who work, you know, within Spain and vice versa, and they want to be able to communicate with the people outside. You don't want to feel in your own little bubble. Now people will argue, okay, well then shouldn't Gibraltar be part of Spain and da 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 da. I'm not here to argue any of that. I'm not agreeing for either side, but at the end of the day, the people of Gibraltar, they want to be able to be part of the community in that area and be able to move freely. I am a huge advocate for people being able to to move around. Freedom of movement of people is super important, and it's the reason why I voted to remain when we had the Brexit vote. Unfortunately, it didn't go my way. That's a democracy. We move on. So I am sure that we are going to hear more about this as time moves forward. But yeah, it's good to hear that things are starting to progress. So that's good. Now, this is the thing. My focus is always on the UK and Spain because that's where I am. But really, where I want to go with this YouTube channel is I want to start to explore other places in the world. Unfortunately, not only do I need time, but I also need money to do that. And sometimes that's not always possible. So I saw this article, and I'm always interested in reading articles like this because it makes my mind think, oh my God, I could go there, I could visit these places. Here we have the best off-the-grid beaches in Mexico. How much I would love to explore a country like Mexico and see what it has to offer. I've heard there's very dangerous places, but you know what I find really interesting? No matter who I speak to, everyone says that about the places that they go to. It's like, oh, it's super dangerous there. And then you go to these places and you generally find people are decent people. Obviously, you need to be careful, right? Don't go walking down the street with your phone in your hand and waving around that you're a tourist and all sorts. But yeah, you know, be sensible and enjoy the places that you visit. Look at this beach. Look how wonderful this looks. I want to be there. Saying that, I am now in Valencia where I'm incredibly happy. So I can't complain. The only thing I will say about an article like this is, you know, okay, these places look absolutely idealistic. But if I was to do a search on these locations, they're probably not very close. In a country like Mexico, which is very large, used to be a lot bigger, to actually see all of them would require a lot of traveling. So I'm not going to go through this entire article, but you know, if you're interested, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these links in the description and you guys can check them out for yourself. Okay, so another article I saw on El País, and I like this one because in Spain there's a big culture of siesta. Now siesta is normally during the day when people have a nap. Basically, which is wild to think for anyone who's from the UK. We don't really nap. It's not what we do. But as you can see here, it says short sleepers cruise by on 4 to 6 hours a night. If I have a night where I sleep for 6 hours, I feel quite groggy the next day. But the interesting thing here is it says here, turns out they are genetically built to require less sleep than the rest of us. And actually, what I find very interesting about this is if you look at evolution and biology, there are people that are morning people and there are people that are evening people or night people. And I very much lean in a night person kind of thing, right? When I wake up, I'm super groggy. I can't be bothered. It's actually nighttime right now. But my point that I'm trying to make here, don't try and fight against your biology. If you feel like you need more sleep in the morning, I feel like just don't fight it. Don't get up super early. I'm someone who goes to the gym all the time. I'm super active. But one thing I tried to do when I was younger is force myself to get up earlier, thinking that's what people do. That's what motivated people do. In reality, I just hated my existence because I was waking up early and then I was tired in the afternoon. I was like, I can't be bothered with this. So yeah, get some more sleep, stay up later and enjoy your life. That's what I would say. Oh, and if you like a nap like I do, what I would say is don't nap more than like an hour and don't nap after 3 p.m. There's a whole book I read on this actually. And if you're interested in that sort of stuff, I'll try and find the book and I'll put it in the description for you. But sometimes I like to have like a 20-minute nap, you know, so I'll have my lunch, literally set an alarm, 20 minutes, wake up, and I feel so good for it and I'm good for the afternoon. Bearing in mind that I'm someone who doesn't actually consume any caffeine either. So this is basically my equivalent of having a coffee. And I think we are going to leave it there for today. This is just a bit of a different style video. Please let me know what you think of it because, as I say, what I normally do is have like everything structured. I have a script and I have everything recorded and ready and I plan everything and try and keep it as organized as possible. But I've realized like what I want to do is be a bit more personable when I'm creating my videos. So this is a way for me to kind of just chat to you guys and tell you about things that I'm finding out. And hopefully I can give you a bit more information on behind the scenes as well with what I'm currently creating. As I say, we've just finished our France series, which was cool. I'm now in Valencia. The weather here in the winter is phenomenal. So I really can't complain at all. Like I'm in a really good position now. And I feel like ever since I left Madrid, my creativity is starting to come out. Rather than creating content on a weekly basis, I can do it on a bi-weekly basis, which then has given me the flexibility to, you know, create this business idea that I wanted to create. Now, does that mean it's going to be bi-weekly forever? No, it could change back. Let's see. I don't know. It might even be more, who knows? But yeah, like if I chuck in things like this from time to time, this is just for fun. If you guys want to watch it, that's fantastic. If you don't, that's absolutely fine too. At the end of the day, what I want to do is create the content that I enjoy making. And if you guys resonate with it, then great. And if you don't, then you don't need to watch it, and that's fine. In the end, maybe there will be people out there who are interested in my website that I'm building. And as I say, it's going to be a clothes website, but there's also other products there as well. I have other things I want to try out in the future, but I'm just going to keep myself focused for the time being. And I'm doing my day job, for example, Monday to Friday. But as soon as I'm finishing that, I'm also working on other things. And I'm starting to socialize a bit more here in Valencia. So I felt very isolated in Madrid, and I feel like here I've really started to build something that's made me incredibly happy. I've been playing football, for example, and I've really enjoyed that as well. This has been really good for me. So anyway, thank you for watching this slightly different video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like, or actually, more importantly, if you don't like this kind of content, leave a dislike. And I mean that because if you don't like this kind of content, I'm just kind of testing the water with this one and seeing where it goes. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.